Hello guys, we are back in new fanfic, and if enjoying this then please share and like part 2. Now let's start the fanfic. Already lost your lisp? Fine. Hinata jumped off the bed and brushed herself down. She silently poked her head out of the window and eyed the surrounding gardens. Taking a deep breath of the scent of flowers, she gently closed the window frame. Now it's completely sound and Byakugan proof. Naruto nodded in acknowledgement. They can see through the window even with the seal active as long as the Byakugan isn't activated. The young girl explained. The boy said slowly, attempting to keep his pronunciation intact. I'm almost certain that Chu-tan and Ka-tan did that prank because the Anbu told them about your Byakugan stopping seal. Really? Hinata cried out in shock as she jumped back onto her bed. But every bedroom and bathroom has them, and we are all taught how to use them as soon as we first activate our dujutsu. Why would? Cause we don't know each other. Naruto slowly finished for her. I think they are suspicious of me. Do they have reason to? Hinata questioned, her brows furrowed as she did so. Naruto couldn't find an answer to that question. He hadn't done anything wrong and he couldn't think of anything he had done that was suspicious. Nope. Unless, was I caught while walking or training with my Kage Bushin shadow clones? An eerie silence befell the room. Naruto gave a sudden unmanly giggle. So continuing from yesterday, she jumped off the bed and brushed herself down. Well, for starters Naruto, officially, my birthday is December 19, I was born 8 days early. Naruto, his parents' suspicions gone from his mind, was on his feet in seconds. How? What? Why? Hinata meekly shrugged. I just did. We don't understand much of what is going on, but we're just dealing with whatever ends up coming our way. The blonde grinned. Datbeo. She let out a giggle, like how my clan thinks I'm a prodigy. His eyes bulged out. What? Please don't tell me you're going to end up like Anata Neji. This time, the girl let out a laugh. No. They think I'm a prodigy because I'm so far ahead of where I'm supposed to be. With his uncomprehending look, she went on, I'm still no good at the Juken style, but look at my room, I can't hide my older personality. Hinata couldn't help but start subtly bragging about her family's faces when she was shown something and was able to do it with the first go. So what's it like to be the son of the Hokage? She finally said with a grin on her face once she was finished explaining the multiple hilarious faces she has been given. A giggling Naruto then started with his explanation of what the Kyuubi had told him when he first found himself in his newborn body on the night of his birth, his now alive parents, the suspicious Hokage, his friendship with Sasuke. The list went on and had only just finished when his parents knocked on the door to bring him home. Backquote. Backquote. Backquote, 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 backquote. It had only took 2 weeks for Naruto to master the usage of his tongue. It was much more comfortable to talk properly again. All he had to do was to get his young tongue used to the movements. It also took just as long to be able to play, another word for, have a meeting to talk about the future, with Hinata again. Since Hinata wasn't even 3 yet, she was never let out of sight by the Hyuga named Ko other than when in the house or with her father or mother. The attempted kidnapping didn't help one bit in the case. Currently, Namikaze Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke were running laps around a playground in the middle of Konoha with Sasuke easily winning. Slow down, Super Sasuke. Although Naruto had lost his lisp, this was the one thing he kept. Why call Sasuke, Sasuke, when you can call him, Sasuke? The blonde toddler ignored the chuckle that he heard from his father sitting on the park bench supervising the two. Speed up, Ramen Man. We must catch Itachi. Sasuke yelled over the loud screams of the other children in the park. Naruto still couldn't define what that hidden emotion that was always in the older boy's voice was, but he knew that something was there. After another 2 minutes of passing and dodging other children, the blonde fell on the ground with his. We really need to get you trained up, Naruto. Even I can sprint for 3 minutes, and that was only a jog for 6. Sasuke said, towering over the fallen blonde, earning a roll of the eyes from the younger. Have you even done any endurance training yet? Do you even want to become a shinobi? 'Cause if you don't, you'll never be able to catch a Nikki. Me. Tan doesn't like me training, he says, I'm too young. I don't think so. Naruto puffed out, dragging his painfully childish and unfit body to its feet. I really need to start training if I want to become good, Dadbao. Anyways, why are we always chasing Itachi? Naruto didn't notice Sasuke's hesitation. 'Cause we always do. We must get better than him. Naruto didn't disagree. Unlike Sasuke's innocent thoughts, his were on stopping the Uchiha massacre. Yes, we will. Dadbao. The two had never given their reasons for wanting to better the older Uchiha, but as long as they had known each other, this had always been their goal. Hey, do you want to come over tomorrow and we can do some training? Sasuke asked as the two walked back towards play equipment and managed to snag one of the overly large swings each as another pair of older children jumped off. Sorry, Sasuke, can't. I'm hanging out with Hinata-tan. Hyuga Hinata. Isn't she the quiet Hyuga heir? Why are you going out with her? The blonde had to hold his tongue from saying that she had gotten over her quietness and stuttering. This young Hinata never had the problem. Yeah, that Hinata. She's not quiet. Why'd ya think she was? Hey, I'll see if we could both come over to your place. You like Hinata-tan, she's really nice, Dadbao, and she likes training too. Naruto grinned, earning a typical raised eyebrow from Sasuke. Okay, at any rate, evil Aniki is going to get away, Ramen Man. We must go catch him. Sasuke dragged the Hokage's son from the swing and back to their circuit around the playground. Hurry up. Since when have you been so N2C as tick, Super Sasuke? Naruto questioned while having trouble using his big words. Fine, off to the end of the world to catch evil Itachi. You ready, Ramen Man? Yes I am, Dadbao. Are you ready, Super Sasuke? Let's go. The two were once again racing around the park, racing against each other more so than the evil Itachi, who they were supposedly chasing, Naruto slowly gaining on the Uchiha the longer the race went on. Caret equals underscore equals caret equals underscore equals caret equals underscore equals caret equals underscore equals caret. The eyelids that covered Naruto's big blue eyes were as heavy as lead as he leaned deeper into the back he was presently on, ignoring the slight itch that the men's hair caused his own neck. Did you enjoy your little run, Naruto? The man finally asked as they left the playground that Naruto and Sasuke had been running around for hours at the end of day. Mia, Naruto mumbled into the back, his arms tightening around the men's neck. Is that a yes or no? Naruto focused his eyes at the blonde strand of his father's hair that was tickling his nose and resisted the urge to scratch at it. Tan, why don't you ever let me play alone? You only let me play with Hinata at her place without someone watching. Do I? I should make sure that I send someone in to watch you there as well then. Minato smiled as he walked down the main market street, doing his best to not stand out because it was his Hokage day off, although he did give a smile whenever a villager recognized him. Naruto shook his head into the crock of his father's neck. Everyone else is allowed out to play on their own. Minato was hesitant to answer. That's because you're different, Naruto. Naruto tensed, which caused his father to immediately stop. How am I different? Was he caught training his Kage Bushin, shadow clones, or wall walking? Had he been overheard while talking to Hinata? Was he too insistent on training, or was he not insistent enough for his age? Naruto tried to ignore the hurt that his father's narrowed eyes caused him. You are the Hokage's child, there are people out there that may want to hurt you because of that. Yet, I believe you already know that. Don't you? The toddler's confused eyes made the man continue. During our tickle you torture prank, you thought we were after information on us. Oh, yeah. Naruto was suddenly cautious. What Chan saying? Anyone would think that if burglars had tied them up and asking for stuff. Minato disagreed with him but didn't let it show. Only trained veterinarians would automatically conclude to that first time. Only a child who had already been through the same circumstance before would be able to end up at that conclusion so quickly. Naruto was not meant to be either. Anyway, I'm 2tan's big boy, Dadbao. And everyone's after 2tan, so that means that some people would go after me to get to 2tan. Naruto continued, trying to get his adult point of view across without sounding too old for his toddler body. 2tan suddenly looked away, his eyes scanning from each villager to villager. You are a smart boy, Naruto. Maybe we should start giving you some ninja trainings since you seem to have made your mind up about being a ninja. Dadbao. Rubbing his ear, Minato persisted. And you've answered your own question as to why I always have someone to watch out for you. He looked at the boy on his shoulder and forced a smile that the boy didn't seem to pick up on the counterfeit part of it. Naruto leaned into the crook of his father's neck and tightened his grip. I didn't realize, I'm tired, I need ramen. The man felt the boy release his tense legs as he fell asleep. His consistent running with Sasuke at the park for a total of 4 hours must have tired the toddler's body out. Minato did his best to look like a happy father with his sleeping child riding Piggy on his back for the villagers who were walking past, but if any ninja looked twice, they would have been able to see the troubled twitch of his eyebrow or the distrusting eyes that flashed to each and every person and exit nearby. He never needs ramen. He only ever says he wants the food, the Yondaime Hokage thought. Fine, I'll give you some training, my version of training. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Naruto woke up the following day with a grin plastered on his face, and the sleepily conversation he had with his father was forgotten from his mind. He was only excited to train with Hinata and Sasuke at the other boy's place. He almost ran out the door without telling his mother where he was going. With a quick explanation, the blonde was out the door in seconds. He could easily smell the Anbu following him as soon as the house was out of sight, yet he chose to ignore this factor as he bolted towards the Hyuga compound. Hinata-tan. Naruto's eyes were closed as he rounded the entrance gate with a grin plastered on his face. The gate guard had gotten used to the Hokage's boy running in on them just as he was now, so a yell caused the toddler to open his eyes. Naruto spun on his heel to avoid the body that he was centimeters away from crashing into. His legs twisted up, so he used his momentum to do a handstand with his weak arms. He turned into a roll before jumping back to his feet. He was met with the wide eyes of the gate guard. Sorry. He spun as he rubbed his sore arms. Naruto froze as his eyes met the white ones of a boy only a year or two older than himself, Neji. The older toddler's eyes were wide. Naruto only now noticed the box of kunai in his arms. That would have been a painful hit. How did you do that? Neji's was gobsmacked, and in his shock, the box slid out of his shaking palms, right over his toes. The young man inside the younger toddler didn't have to think before he reacted. Kicking the box caused it to land a meter away and making the flying kunai miss the older toddler's toes. Neji-kun, be more careful. The gate guard's sharp tone startled both of them. It wasn't Neji's fault. I ran into him. Naruto's mouth acted before his mind could again. See you. The youngest was off before the two noticed that he called the older toddler by name and without a honorific. He yelled out Hinata's name again, and he ran through the traditional koi gardens, into the outdated house and through the halls. He almost ran into the girl he was calling for until they both spun out of the way. Wah! Naruto! What are you doing? Hina! 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 Guess what? Naruto practically screamed into her face. We're going to Sasuke's place and we are going to do some training. The girl giggled at his approach before trying to calm him down. I need to ask first. The bomb that hit him did nothing to destroy his hyperactive mode. Ask, 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 he hyperactively repeated over and over again. Hinata giggled before running off. The blonde toddler decided to stay in the hallway. jumping up and down loudly and repeating a dadbayo over and over again. 10 minutes later, Hinata was greeted with the sight of several confused Hyuga and a still hyperactive son of the Hokage. Naruto, calm down. The only reply she got was an expectant look from the said boy. Stuff it, she sighed before grinning a grin that she had obviously copied from her future fiancé. Ko-san is going to meet us out the front and bring us to Sasuke-san's house. When we get there, he will decide if it's safe enough to leave us alone or to accompany us while we train. Grabbing his hand with one quick motion, Hinata ran out of the hallway, dodging the multiple confused Hyuga and into the gardens. They met up with the older Hyuga at the gate and the two almost dragged him to their destination, making it to the Uchiha compound in record time. Finding the house was another matter though, as Ko didn't allow Naruto to lead the two Hyuga through the other clan's compound. They spent a good half an hour walking around in circles. Naruto pounded up to the door as soon as Ko let go of his hand to knock. Without knocking, he ran into the house and started yelling. Makoto Oba-san, I'm home. Hinata laughed and Ko stared, both almost missing the woman that entered the hallway and gave the blonde toddler a hug. Good morning Naru-chan, you are very happy today. Yeah, we're gonna start some training. Okay, so who are your friends at the door? The Uchiha's voice sounded like bells to the young Hyuga's ears and she let out a gasp. Naruto gave a childish giggle, thrilled at the idea of his anti-figure not minding the fact that he and Sasuke were going to do some ninja practice. That's Ko-san, Hina-chan's bodyguard. And the one gaping like a fish is Hina-chan. Why are you trying to look like a fish? Because I think a cat would be better than impersonating a fish than you at the moment, Hina. Naruto had a hard time keeping up his childish act when the said girl went red and pouted until she replied. Your voice is really pretty. Can I have it, Makoto-san? This time, Naruto had to hold in his laugh when her eyes glanced at him. She was using her fake childish innocence. I don't think it is possible to swap voices, but I reckon when you grow a bit bigger, your voice will be pretty too. Makoto gave the girl a big smile. Are you going to join Sasuke and Naruto for training? Hinata couldn't help but want to take a step back. It felt like the woman suddenly was looking right through her eyes and into her older soul. She nodded with a small smile. Well, Naruto-chan, Hina-chan, Sasuke is out the back. The woman turned towards Ko before the toddlers ran off. Ko-san, would you like some tea? The kids were out of the room too quickly to hear the answer, not that it mattered. Naruto and Hinata met up with Sasuke, who was outside in his family's personal training ground, not far away from the large lake, practicing his kunai throwing. Sasuke! Naruto yelled as he tackled the older boy to the ground. He almost smirked when Hinata's giggle echoed around the training ground. He loved that sound. Naruto! Get off me! Sasuke yelled right back as he tried to push the blonde off his back. Hi! He sheepishly said as soon as he noticed the girl. As soon as both boys were up and introductions were over, Sasuke started the other two on a warm-up session of stretches, push-ups, sit-ups and crutches before he called over Itachi to help them with simple taijutsu stances and eventually kunai throwing lessons when the short attention spans of the toddlers got the better of them. They finished off with some endurance training where they jogged around the lake for 2 hours. Initially, when Sasuke called his bother over, Hinata obviously flinched. Fortunately, only Naruto was around at the time. However, the girl couldn't help but openly stare at the older boy during the session. Later, Naruto found out that it was because she just couldn't picture that small boy ever being able to murder his entire clan. Naruto returned home absolutely exhausted that night after dropping Hinata home with Ko, where she asked to meet him tomorrow at her place because she wanted him to meet someone. He dragged his feet through the front door and almost tripped as he tried to get his shoes off. Kushina, who was in the kitchen as she heard her son come through the door, washed her hands and came out only to see one little shoe in the shoe port and another down the hallway and a mop of blonde passed out on the closest couch in the lounge room. A smile adorned her face as she carefully picked the boy up and put him to bed after using a damp cloth to attempt to clean some sweat off his little body and checked for injuries. Good night, Naru-chan. Don't let any enemies bit. The redhead said as she closed his door with a sense of serenity deep inside her. She could get used to this as long as both her blondes returned uninjured. As the saying goes, babies are only cute when they are sleeping. One had returned exhausted from his first hard day of physical training and the other would return later in the night exhausted from a hard day of paperwork. Kushina went back to the kitchen and put away all the healthy food for two she had out and pulled out 2 boxes of instant ramen. Well, no one else was here to know what she was eating. Hehe, Minato can't stop me and Naruto isn't around to see my bad habits. Ramen, here I come. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Seeing stars and feeling pain, Uchiha Obito was disorientated and the last thing he could remember was that purple flame. Looking around, he couldn't decipher where he was. Only seconds ago he was in the craterous Konoha but now he was surrounded by trees, bushes and other lush greenery. A stabbing pain suddenly went through his entire body as he tried to move. As he looked down, a Rasengan reminiscent wound made itself known. This caused him to frown and another stab of pain went through his entire body. A throb on his cheek caused him to remove the mask he wasn't wearing before, then it hit him like a tsunami. His sight was smaller, back to the amount he had when he had only one eye. A small gasp left him mouth before he could stop it and his smaller than normal hand wandered up to his missing Rinnegan eye. His single eye scanned the landscape and the man quickly found cover in a cave made by the roots of a large tree that suspiciously looked similar to trees made from the Shodai Hokage's Mokuden. Obito almost collapsed as soon as he entered and his surprise ran deep at just how much his entire right side hurt. It hadn't hurt this much in over 15 years. Luckily it wasn't as much pain as 20 years ago just after that damned rock was removed from his dying body. He rested his back on the root wall before inspecting his mask. He tensed. I haven't seen this mask in years. The white and black flame-patterned mask signified the time that he had finally demolished his broken heart when he caused the death of his once precious sensei, the sensei that was never around when he was most needed. With his heartbeat rapidly beating in his ears, realization hit the man like a bullet to the chest. The Rasengan wound was deep in his chest like he was attacked by a jutsu that he had little to no experience dodging. The constant throb that every pump of his heart caused his right side, his missing Rinnegan left eye and his old mask could only add up to one thing. The QB attack. Obito's experienced eyes were widened with shock and he felt like screaming. It couldn't have been long ago that he had retreated from that one-on-one fight he had with his sensei. The man-turned child took a deep, shaky breath and understood why he was having the childish urge to yell, and scream, and complain about his misfortune. He painfully pulled himself back to his feet and took another deep breath, trying to ignore the pain. He'd dealt with his pain before and he could again, although Obito had to admit to himself that he had gotten used to the slight throb that his right side had healed to. Obito took a shaky step away from the tree and did the same thing he did 18 years ago on this very night. He retreated into the shadows of Madara's tunnels. Ripple effect. It's bigger, everyone thought. It took 3 months for Obito to realize that he was, in fact, 18 years in the past. He needed to be certain that this wasn't a really strong genjutsu from a revived Uchiha or something. He needed proof. Once he had gotten used to the increased pain in his right side and a fortunate surprise of drastically increased chakra reserves, he had ventured out of Madara's tunnels, ignoring Zetsu's warnings and protests. In Kiri Mist, he found that the Academy's graduation test of fighting to the death had only been discontinued for 5 years where, from memory, it should have been 23 years ago. That and the Yondaime Mizukage was still alive. He found civil war and Suno was still in a financial mess. Iwa Rock was still recovering from the Third Great Shinobi War and Kumo Cloud were still planning to somehow steal the Byakugan. Finally, After checking on multiple people, Uchiha Obito finally accepted that he was 18 years in the past. His next question he needed to answer before he decided what to do was, how? At first, the teen started looking towards what could have brought him here. All he could come up with was the dark purple Amaterasu-like fire that escaped from Uzumaki Naruto's dying body, though he doubted that a flame, no matter the size or strength, could cause someone to jump through time and return to their old body, even if that flame was caused by a dying Kyuubi. Ultimately, Obito decided that a jutsu would be needed, a very well thought out fuinjutsu that probably ate a lot of chakra. He even doubted that, as there were few to no fuinjutsu experts that had a lot of chakra left. The next thoughts that went through his head were, why? He gave up asking how. Maybe the gods thought that he couldn't reach his goal and gave him another chance at it, and moved on to the next question. Why? Did the gods like him or hate him? He could not answer. Eventually he came up with something that would answer the majority of his questions, but most of all, though he refused to speak this out loud, it gave him the feeling of security. Someone important had made him travel back in time, where initially, Madara's Eye of the Moon plan started to go wrong, the Kyuubi attack. The gods were either giving him another chance to complete the plan earlier in the timeline so that he could create the ultimate piece, or they were giving him another chance at doing something different. This answer meant that he was the only one who came back. It meant that he was special, and finally, it meant that whatever he ended up doing would work. Finally, the last question Obito had to answer so that he could get his life up and running again was, what? What was he going to do? Now that was easy, until he remembered what year he fell into. As the Kyuubi attack still failed even though the gods sent him back, he guessed that the gods more likely gave him this second chance to do something else. Since being selfless, in his own opinion, to the point of wanting world peace, didn't work, he decided to be selfish this time around. I need to save Rin, was all he talked about for a week while retraining his body. Rin was all he thought about during that week. Rin, Arin. Then the moon shone on the matter and the boy realized that Rin was gone. Why didn't the gods help him? If only they could have sent him back one more year, then he would have been able to save her. No, stop Kakashi from murdering her. She could have lived as a Jinchuriki, no harm. Namikaze Minato or Jiraiya could have fixed the seal keeping the Sanbi in. He was almost like a child on this matter. He was dead set on getting his real Rin back this time, no matter what. I will learn the Kuchiyos, Edo Tensai Jutsu, Impure World Reincarnation Jutsu. Hitaki Kakashi's eyes doubled in size as a tall man with a mop of blonde hair walked through Konoha's market street with his tired eyes on the ground and his brows furrowed with stress. The teen had been busy with D-ranked missions for repairing the village during the last 3 months since the Kyuubi attack and hadn't had time to see his sensei. The Sandaime had taken over as Hokage for the majority of the time, and all D-ranks were being created and administrated by the admin office, so he couldn't even see him between missions or around the village. No, he was lying to himself. Hitaki Kakashi was avoiding the man like the plague. He didn't think he was ready to face the ghosts of his past yet. But after taking a deep breath, he deemed himself ready to face reality head on in lieu of hiding in the shadows of normality. Sensei, he called just as Minato turned out of the street. Kakashi. The blonde man stopped so that the boy could catch up before walking again. I'm just heading home now. I'm too tired to deal with your complaints you're bound to have about all the D-rank missions right now. He said with a sigh. Ah, wait. He didn't stop. Kakashi hesitated before following him again with wide eyes which he hoped his sensei couldn't see. He couldn't take his eyes off him. It felt like he was in one of his multiple dreams where members of his team seemed to miraculously come back to life. He hoped this wasn't one though, all those dreams always turned into nightmares. The two walked together in silence until they reached the street the older man lived in. I'm not here to complain. I know that more ranks then normal or needed to get the village up and running again rather than A's or B's. Kakashi finally said when he found some confidence. Minato stopped and pulled out his keys before unlocking the door of his house. Then what do you want? You know I'm really busy at the moment dealing with the QB attack and a newborn baby, I can't train you or something in the likewise. Kakashi's brows furrowed at this as the man opened the door. The boy absent-mindedly followed him into the house. This is only a dream, right? With a slight bit of venom in his voice, he replied, Minato-sensei, I haven't seen you in forever and the one time I do he almost crashed into his sensei when he stopped suddenly, sensei. Minato, Kakashi-kun, a voice said from the lounge room. The boy missed whatever Minato said as all his attention was glued to a man which caused him to want to freeze and have a double take on the color of his eyes. Jirai, ya. The said man's attention was back on the sleeping baby in his arms. The senin looked up at the sound of the shock in the boy's voice. Are you alright, Kakashi-kun? You look like you've seen a ghost. He swallowed. Oh, you don't know just how many I've been seeing. Worry suddenly graced the faces of all the adults in the room. It's not like I'm seeing things now, so don't worry. Kakashi quickly said to calm them down, unconsciously giving his signature eye smile before turning his attention on the sleeping 3-month-old to calm his nerves as the adult's eyes stayed on his face for a moment longer. Maybe this wasn't a good idea. Minato sat down on a lounge seat and motioned for Kakashi to do the same on the other spare singular lounge seat. The adults started some small talk between them about the baby and Kakashi went back to his thoughts. This dream felt almost real, almost because it was absolutely impossible. Jiraiya and he had sat in the Namikaze lounge room before with both Minato-sensei and Kushina but never with a baby with blonde hair in the arms of the senin. Even in his dreams, never had the QB attack actually happened and Minato-sensei and Kushina had miraculously survived. Never did Naruto get out of being a Jinchuriki. Kakashi was afraid that he would suddenly wake up and it would all be over. His sensei's family was destroyed and he was in the middle of a war protecting his sensei's son. I can't believe that he'd already worked out how to open a doorknob when he was only 2 months old though, that's genius. Zoning back in, Kakashi finally said something so that he didn't seem rude. Why is it so, genius, Jiraiya? He still couldn't open the door so how does that help? His eyes were glued to the young Naruto's face. Knowledge is power at his age, the white-haired man explained. At this age they don't have the muscles to physically do anything but their ability to learn is massive. Babies, toddlers and children can learn a whole language within 4 to 6 years. You may not have been very strong when you were 6 but you already had the mind and abilities of a 12-year-old genin. Knowledge is much more than power at such a young age. The boy started to wonder if Naruto was this smart when he was baby. He didn't spend much time with Naruto while he was a baby so he didn't know. Why would my mind suddenly make Naruto a child genius? I know he was pretty much useless until he learned the Kage Bushin no Jutsu, shadow clones, when he was 12 so he shouldn't be doing something like opening a door at such a young age. Kakashi furrowed his eyebrows. Unless this is real. The boy had to admit that this dream, if that was what it was, had gone on a very long time. He had been a little bit disorientated at first because he was used to a bigger body and he had even accidentally hit his thumb with a hammer on a D, which should have woken him up. Maybe, just maybe, if I pretend that this is real, what could have caused it? The last thing he could remember was the attack on the crater's Konoha. Naruto and himself were the only 2 ninja in the crater, the rest were either medics collecting the dead who were killed by a Zetsu attack or Naruto's fiancée who was trying to convince the blonde that she wasn't sick. Suddenly there was an attack and the next thing he knew was that he was fighting Obito with Sakura. Fire. Purple fire was the last thing he knew before he was suddenly standing alongside younger versions Guy, Kurenai and Asuma and many other ninja teens being held back by several senior ninja for some unknown reason. It hadn't taken him long to realize it was the QB attack but he easily noticed that something was different, maybe something was even wrong. The baby in Jiraiya's arms starting to wake up brought Kakashi out of his thoughts. Naruto, who would have thought your parents would still be alive to see a day like this? He didn't know if he wanted this to be real or not. The baby's big blue eyes widened as he looked at Kakashi's own, then at Jiraiya's. Something in Naruto's eyes caused Kakashi to frown. They reminded him more of the eyes of his student rather than the eyes of an ignorant baby. I don't know much about babies, but I do know that they don't look people in the eye. I'm certain that babies have trouble focusing their eyes at this age. Ah on. Ooh I ab ooman on my ace. Is he trying to talk or just babbling? Grr. Quote. He baby laughed and his face went even redder than it already was and an arm started to wave itself around his head. Ahm udari unjii owned. Aiao. The baby's tummy growled again and everyone stayed silent, waiting to see what the baby would do. Aru, by arm. When no one talked, the baby obviously started to freak out, babbling on, then his eyes widened again as if he realized something. Kakashi couldn't help but wonder why baby Naruto was acting like this. Normal babies don't act so civilized. They don't baby talk as if they are trying to make conversation with things around them, do they? Or OUE said EEU umpo and IIMD, inhaled ox, IID. Minato breathed in harshly. I know. He suddenly changed his mind, almost as if he hadn't even wanted to say what he was originally going to say. His eyes flashed between Kakashi and Jiraiya. You two should stay over for dinner so we can talk. His voice faded to a whisper on the last word. Everyone agreed. Dinner was quick and quiet. The adults wanted to talk about something and they wanted Kakashi to be a part of it, and for some reason, none of them felt that it was safe to talk while the baby was around, especially Minato. Surprisingly, Naruto stayed quiet, seemingly able to understand the mood his elders were in. As he ate, Kakashi let his thoughts wander again. I don't know if this is a dream or not, but I think I will take my chances. If this is a dream, it might just turn into a nightmare and be over quicker rather than just waiting it out. If this is real though. Hey, Kushina's voice echoed through the silent kitchen. I'll go put Naru-chan to bed, then we can talk. She took the baby quickly out of the room and returned 15 minutes later while Minato and Jiraiya were making some small talk. Back, the redhead announced as she came in, do we want to sit in the lounge room? Can we go to the study? I need to put up a barrier seal up because I have something important to tell you, Hokage-sama. Kushina and Kakashi-kun can sit in. Jiraiya said before anyone else could reply. Minato's eyes widened before he led them all upstairs to his office. The air was tense as he shut the door and activated a seal. This will muffle our voices and blur our image even to a Hyuga's Byakugan. Jiraiya nodded in acknowledgement. The office room was fairly small compared to the fact that it was the private office of the Hokage. With a desk in the middle of the room, shelves and drawers on either side and a display cupboard on the back wall, there was barely enough room for all four of them to move around. This is a double S-ranked secret that at the moment, you must protect with your lives. Jiraiya said with absolute seriousness. I have information that cannot get into the wrong hands and I can't deal with it myself. I don't remember anything like this ever happening, not a word will leave my mouth. Kakashi said when both Minato's and Jiraiya's eyes flickered towards him. With a nod from the other two adults, Jiraiya continued. Minato, Kushina, you two were meant to die on the night of the Kyuubi attack. The said two tensed. No, you two did die. This time their eyes widened. What are you talk? Minato, let me finish, otherwise you will have more questions than I can answer. Jiraiya interrupted, and then looked out the window before continuing. Minato, you used the Shikifuin to seal half of Kyuubi's chakra, then you sealed the other half into Naruto, making him the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Both of you died due to a stab wound from the Kyuubi's claw. Kakashi's eyes were wide with disbelief whilst Minato's and Kushina's were narrowed with confusion. But, we're still alive. Kushina said tentatively. Minato, you are the space-time jutsu expert. Do you believe that time travel could be possible 16 years into the future? Minato was hesitant to answer. Are you trying to say that you're from the future? Why do you say 16 years? All three adults had their eyes immediately on the boy. Kakashi's eyes were on the ground. Then, with a new determination, they met the adults with an expression that was far beyond his age. Jiraiya, there were only 2 times you were close to death, not counting the third. The first, you caused yourself, and had to deal with Tsunade-sama's wrath. The second was while you were training the child of prophecy and he got up to the 4th tail. Kakashi-kun, Jiraiya's only been close to death once, Kushina said with a sweat drop. Jiraiya's eyes were bulging out of his face with an almost comical effect, inevitably causing Kakashi's jaw had dropped to the ground. That means that this is real. Kakashi said in shock with an accusing finger pointed at the sage. The comment caused a raised eyebrow from Minato, and the expression of the boy and Sennin caused a silent cackle from Kushina. What are you two talking about? Minato's skeptical tone knocked the shock out of his teacher and student, and they both turned towards him with enlarged eyes. He's from the future. The two said in unison. Minato face-palmed and said, "That's impossible," whilst at the same time Kushina finally let out her laughter and fell to the ground in a fit of giggles and cried out between chuckles, "Time travel's impossible, everyone knows that." Kakashi flashed his eyes towards Jiraiya and found that he was doing the same. Then, once again they said in harmony, "That's what we thought too." Kushina suddenly took a deep breath and stood up. "Okay, I'm good." "Why would you think that?" she said with one final giggle. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. "Because you both died years ago. I am your son's sensei and I was fighting in the 4th Great Shinobi War. That, and this building still should not exist anymore." 4th Great Shinobi War. All three adults cried out in astonishment. Right at that moment, Kakashi really wished he had one of his Ika Ika books to hide behind. "I don't know what caused Jiraiya and I to travel in time, but I do know that I am 18 years in the past and Jiraiya died 2 years ago in my timeline. What date did you come back to?" Jiraiya was lost for words. "The night of the Kyuubi attack, Jiraiya-san. You. Same. Quote. What on earth are the two of you talking about?" Kushina suddenly yelled, causing the two time travelers to jump. "Well, Kushina-chan, by the look of it, Kakashi and I, both somehow died on different dates. 2 years apart. Did you die, Kakashi?" With a shrug from the boy, Jiraiya continued, "And we have somehow traveled through time to the exact same date, the night of the Kyuubi attack." He looked at the boy for affirmation. "We don't seem to know how or why, but we can tell you what we know of the future to benefit the village and hopefully steer the shinobi world into the right direction." Wait. Kushina was suddenly in front of the both of them and holding them by the collars. "So you two aren't just being idiots and planning some stupid prank against us?" she growled. Jiraiya's sweat dropped and was reminded why the woman he hadn't seen for 16 years was called the Bloody Habanero. Why would I get Minato to put up a seal if it was only a prank? Kushina eyed her husband. "Do you believe them, Mina-chan?" The Hokage's eyes dangerously narrowed. "Speak." The redhead put the two down and moved so that she was standing next to the Hokage as his right-hand woman. "Well. Quote. The room was silent by the time Kakashi finished putting his input in. Jiraiya was obviously gobsmacked at the escalation after his death. War. So, Naruto became the Rokudaime Hokage and Obito is still alive. Minato's question was rhetorical and no one bothered to answer it. The 4th Shinobi War, Minato continued his incoherent rambling. "Even I didn't see that one coming," Jiraiya said with his head down, processing the information from 2 years after he had died. "At least there was 17 years of peace and a shinobi alliance formed." Kushina said. "That's more than the peace time between the 2nd and 3rd. Kakashi couldn't help but want to roll his eyes at the redhead, only she could still be an optimist after being told that war was on the horizon. The last war she'd been in finished just under 2 years ago. "I have another question. Why are Kushina and I still alive?" Minato suddenly said after another moment of silence. Kakashi's and Jiraiya's eyes met before they both shrugged and in unison said, "No idea." Tell us exactly what happened on the night of the QB attack. Maybe we could work out what differed from our attack and yours. Kushina's sweat dropped. I don't really remember. I was a bit out of it. Minato started his own explanation on what happened with his wife, adding anything that he missed. He said every single detail that he could think of and even put in any thoughts he was having at the time. Every couple of minutes he would pause and ask if the others had any questions or if they wanted to know more about anything. I put Naruto into the crib in the ceiling bed while Kushina was holding the QB back with her chains. My plan was to use the dead demon seal, Shiki Fujin, to seal half of the beast's chakra, then seal the rest into Naruto with the 8 trigrams seal. The Hokage continued with his explanation. Kakashi and Jiraiya had yet to intervene or ask any questions other than when the blonde stopped, though this time Kakashi frowned for a moment. Kushina lost control of the QB while I was in the middle of the hand signs for the dead demon seal, Shiki Fujin, and it immediately went for the crib. The QB stopped struggling for a second. I was controlling my chains and compensating for the fact he would be struggling. Due to that, he found a loophole in the technique and he managed to escape. Kushina added. We jumped in front of the claw that was aiming for Naruto. I even stopped the seal, but the beast suddenly froze. At first I thought it was going to shot out at him as soon as we were out of the way, but it never happened. After we hit the ground, the QB started looking somewhat transparent and his expression on his face changed before he disappeared, faded away, so to speak. Minato paused to let what he had just said to sink in. So what were the differences between this attack and the one from your timeline? He finally said. Not much. Kakashi said with a frown only slightly hidden by his mask and headband. The only differences from my knowledge of the QB attack are right at the end. You used the dead demon seal, Shiki Fujin, while Kushina held the QB off, then the smaller sized QB managed to escape the chains and attack Naruto. You two were both fatally stabbed through the middle of your torso, but you still managed to finish the 8 trigrams seal before you both died. Jiraiya said with foggy eyes, obviously thinking about the memory from when Hiruzen told him what he saw on that night. Basically, the QB attacking Naruto earlier in this fight is the only difference, not counting the obvious disappearing Biju. Kushina noted. Anything else, Minato? Jiraiya asked. Yeah, Naruto. Jiraiya and Kakashi made a face at this, though Kushina looked like it was old bad news. After the QB disappeared and Kushina let the Sandaime into the barrier, I collected him from the ceiling bed, but he was acting funny. He was really quiet and something in his eyes had changed from only minutes before when I placed him into the cot. Minato swallowed almost like he regretted that moment. He looked broken. His eyes didn't look like that of a newborn, they looked older, wiser, and they looked like he knew what had just happened and he had just escaped a death sentence. The two time travelers gasped. Impossible. What happened? I have a hypothesis, but I need your opinions. Minato said. Kushina grimaced. She didn't want to hear what her husband was going to say. She wouldn't believe it no matter what. She turned into Minato and hid her face in his shoulder. I think the QB took over his body and that Namikaze Naruto died on the night he was born. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Naruto woke up with a scowl and his sore muscles refused to let him get out of bed. He couldn't even remember getting into bed. Once he did, he waddled down into the kitchen with loose pajama pants, a too big shirt, and his green frog hat hanging over his eye. Mon, he said as he walked into the room, rubbing his eye. He heard both his parents chuckle. The man inside, the toddler, could help but sigh at the sight. This was what he had missed growing up. His father was at the dining table eating eggs on toast with bacon while reading the newspaper or something like that, and his mother was wearing a green apron and rinsing her own dish to put in the dishwasher. Morning, Naru-chan. You slept in. His mother greeted him. Maya, everything hurts. Is training meant to still hurt? He asked innocently, knowing he'd be having a nice long talk with Kurama later. His father chuckled. So you've been training. What have you been training for? Minato said as he put down whatever he was reading to pay attention to the boy who was now climbing onto the seat next to him. Naruto grinned. He could make his daddy proud. Hina-chan and I went to Sasuke's place yesterday and Itachi-san helped us train. Itachi shows us some taijutsu and we had a go, then we did some kunai throwing and we finished off with endurance training and ran around non-stop for, like, 3 hours. Or maybe it was 2, he grinned, showing off his baby teeth. Minato nodded his head, his missing proud smile didn't go amiss by his son. Naruto felt a little bad that he was still sore from doing such basic training, it could barely be called training, so he didn't feel the need to comment on it. If he didn't feel proud of himself, why would his father? What have you been training for? The man repeated his second question. Ah, what am I training for? The future? I can't say that, I know. Sasuke and Hina-chan have both started clan training and I don't want to fall behind. And I want to be as strong as Tan. I want to be Hokage. Naruto couldn't help but proudly grin at both his parents' shocked faces and couldn't help but want to imagine their faces if he ever told them that he was already a Hokage. Kushina suddenly shot a glare at Minato before quickly turning back to the toddler. Wow, that's a big dream Naruto-chan, but don't you want to be like your Ka-chan? Naruto furrowed his brows. Aren't you just a normal ninja? I want to be a special ninja. Haha, I guess so. She then whispered to Minato, I'm glad he didn't say I'm just a mum. The man chuckled. That's a really big dream, Naruto. Do you think you'll be able to reach it? I already have. Yep, I know I will. Some emotion graced his father's face for a second, but the toddler was too slow to recognize it. So what are you doing today? Kushina asked as she put a plate of eggs on toast and bacon in front of him. After taking a big bite he said, "I'm going to Hinata's," he said with a mouthful before swallowing. She wants me to meet one of her friends. Do you know who? Naruto shook his head and started stuffing his face. By the time he looked up, his father was talking to his mother in a hushed tone and his body language told him that he was in Hokage mood. Minato got Kushina to read something on his piece of paper before she nodded. Naru-chan, the redhead said, Ka-chan won't be here when you wake up tomorrow morning and Tu-chan needs to be at the office at the same time. Mission. Yeah bub. Do you think you can make yourself some toast or do you want me to make you a sandwich for breakfast or? Kushina's face was guilt-ridden. I can make toast. I won't put a knife in the toaster or anything. We'll make it up to you. We really hate it when we do this, sorry. Naruto jumped up and gave his mother a hug. It's alright, when will you be home? I don't know. She picked him up and cooed him in her arms. When are you going? The boy said worriedly. Kushina giggled. Way after your bedtime. Okay, I'll make sure I give you a big hug tonight then. Naruto. His father got his attention and he turned around in his mother's arms. Would you like to start that special training I promised you a couple of days ago tomorrow afternoon? The blonde's eyes bulged out of his head. Special training. I don't remember that. I'll be teaching you. Minato's eyes wandered up to his glaring wife's before back to his son's. Yes. Naruto screamed. The Yondaime Hokage is going to train me. Tu-chan is going to train me. He jumped out of his mother's arms and gave Minato's legs a big hug. Yes, 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 yes please. Okay. Minato smiled. We'll talk about it tonight. I need to get to work and you need to get to Hinata's. It's already 10:30. We all slept in. Naruto gasped and let go, sprinting back to his chair and sculling his milk. I told Hina-chan I'd be at her place by 10. As he ran back to his room to get changed, he heard his parents chuckling. He got dressed and did some stretches so that he wouldn't get a stitch running over to the compound before running back downstairs and into the kitchen to say goodbye. He was out the door with shoes hastily put on, no socks and his shirt inside out. Ignoring the following Anbu, the blonde got through the Hyuga compound's gates in record time although his muscles were screaming for forgiveness. He raced through the garden and was urged to shortcut through the training ground and the other gardens but thought that it would be rude to come in through the window if this other person was already there. Ko stopped him at the formal lounge room and made him wait there while the man told Hinata that he was here. As soon as he came back into the room and said, "You know the way," the toddler was down the hallway and making his way thought the maze to Hinata's door. The blonde paused and regained his breath when he reached the door, knowing that they couldn't hear him if the Byakugan stopping seal was activated. With a deep breath he knocked, hoping he wasn't as late as Kakashi would have been in the same situation. "Good morning, sorry I'm late," Naruto said with his hand sheepishly rubbing the back of his head as he opened the door, but as soon as he noticed the second toddler in the room he became confused. "What's Sakura-chan doing here?" he wondered. When neither of the girls said anything and Hinata gave Naruto an expectant look, the boy started babbling to get rid of the silence. Hi, I'm Naruto. Hina-chan told me to come over at 10, sorry I'm late." "Who are you?" "Naruto, as in fishcake. That's a funny thing to be named after." "I'm Sakura," the pinklet said apprehensively. "Hey, my name came from a book Arrow Oji-san right and the name came to him while he was eating ramen, so what? Ramen is the best and the ninja in the book is super strong. And you're named after a plant. Hump. It's a tree, thank you. I even have a whole festival to my name," Sakura snobbed. "Oh, I can play at this. I have an entire anniversary to my birthdate. I bet in a couple of years I will have a carnival every birthday." "Wow, I'm so impressed." Toddler Sakura said sarcastically. "What did you do, save the village?" "Why, of course my dear, I saved your precious Yandi-sama's life." "And I saved your life, so what does this have to do with festivals?" the older toddler asked with only a slight bit of sarcasm this time. "Everything." Hinata suddenly cleared her throat. She was kneeling on the ground with her face angled at their feet and looking very professional. Naruto and Sakura made eye contact one last time before following the younger girl's example and sitting down, though both just crossed their legs for comfort. "Ah, is this Sakura the person who you wanted me to meet, Hina-chan?" Naruto said when the said girl didn't speak. Hinata only opened her mirthful eyes that flickered between the two. She obviously knew what was going on but wanted the other two to work it out for themselves. Naruto couldn't help but notice that Kurama had been very quiet for the last few days and was silent when he asked the beast if he know what was going on. "Hinata obviously wants me to figure out what's going on by myself and somehow Kurama is in on it too. Kurama can't personally talk to anyone without going through me, so that means he's figured it out." Naruto's brows furrowed. Why would Hinata want me to meet Sakura? "I don't know. Maybe Sakura just wanted to meet the son of the Hokage, she is a civilian. Or maybe Hinata just wanted Sakura to join our friendship, but then we couldn't talk about or plan the future." "Naruto, you're an idiot. Oh, you're finally talking to me now. Only because you are too damn dumb to work this out and it's getting boring to watch. Bastard. Are you going to help me out or what? I would like to say the, or what, choice but it would talk too long. Every time your girlfriend talks about the future, her plans and her ideas, she talks in plurals, we, s, are." Naruto inwardly scowled at the huge fox, me. The fox rolled his eyes only for show but glad that Naruto currently could not go into the mindscape because he didn't feel like putting up another genjutsu. "Aka-chan, your little girlfriend has suggested many a time that another knows of the future. Wah, if she did, she'd tell me. Stop talking in riddles and just say whatever you're trying to say so I'll understand it. What does Hinata want from me and Sakura? Just at what point did I decide to trust an idiot? That Sakura is from the future." Ha! Concentrating on what was happening around him again, Naruto turned his head and had a good look at the older toddler only to find that she was doing the same. There was something in her eye that differed from the innocent Kiba who he had met at the park, and that something looked the same as whatever was in Hinata's eyes. She wasn't squirming like he knew Sasuke would be doing in such a tense situation. Instead, she was sitting still with a calm and calculating gaze, doing the exact same as he was. Soccer is from the future. Soccer is from the future. Realization hit him like a spade to the head. Hey! Naruto and Sakura yelled in unison, their eyes flickering between a smirking Hinata and the other toddler. Then the lavender bud calmly stated, then there was three. Ha! I told you that I had a surprise, Sakura-chan. Naruto, I have been trying to get you to meet Sakura for a while now. I wanted to do this yesterday but you ran in saying you wanted to train as Sasuke's. Sakura threw a suspicious glance at the blonde-haired toddler, who ends up in your Genin team. How many times do you try out to become Chunin? What is your official rank? What position do you hold and who is your companion? She said sternly. Nothing like the toddler she looked like. Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke, and our sensei is Hitaki Kakashi. Once, Genin, Hokage and Kurama. Naruto said with wide eyes before asking his own questions, what's your pro-FE scion? Who is your admirer? I know, what happened during the limited Tsukuyomi and what was my name? Sakura's green eyes widened at his answers before answering her own, medic, Rock Lee. Everyone became polar opposites and your name was Menma. Naruto found her arms quickly around his neck, flabbergasted at her reaction and a laugh escaped his young lips. Nice to see you again too, Sakura-chan. Pulling away, embarrassment glowing red on her cheeks, Sakura said, so, what in the world is going on? Naruto's the person you've been talking about. Sorry, I wanted to see your faces so I didn't tell either of you about the other. The youngest in the room giggled. Sakura eyes were mockingly wide with disbelief. So when did you two meet? Naruto asked after a pause. Well, I realized Hinata was Hinata-chan about a year and a half ago at a park. Sakura started explaining even though she wanted to know the same about Naruto and Hinata. She was talking to herself, without stuttering, and was making, what was it? She turned to the other girl. It was a model of the rebuild of Konoha after Pain's attack. Yep. It was a model in the sandpit and I came up to her asking questions about it. We realized we were both from the original timeline and, yeah, we became friends and all. Naruto nodded. He was a little peeved that he hadn't gone to any playgrounds earlier. He'd already met Kiba at one of them. I met Hinata after overhearing your Ka-san and Ino's Ka-san talking about her being kidnapped but it was too early. It wasn't the 27th yet so I ran over here to check on her. You've probably already told Hinata but what's been happening for you? Sakura asked. Naruto's former infamous grin appeared on his face. Let's start off with what Kurama has told me when we came back. The sun glowed radiantly alongside the bright blue cloudless sky and the chorus created by the sounds of birds sang louder than a roar of a waterfall. This was the type of day that a small blonde-haired child ran into when he raced out of his family house with a huge grin plastered across his face and determination in his strides. It didn't take long for the boy to run through the streets and reach his destination, while giggly replying to all the greetings he received from nearby villagers. He knocked on a front door and a moment later another boy came running out of the house. The two disappeared from the doorstep in a flash and met up with a pair of excited girls followed by one set of parents. They group made their way to the most important part of the village with thrilled voices. Today was the Konoha Ninja Academy Open Day, also the first day of school for all the first-year entrees. Children of all ages were running through the school's halls with enthusiastic screams echoing throughout the building. Teachers and older students were giving guided tours to families and festival-like attractions sprawled the playground including a rock-climbing wall, ring toss and a bucking bull. Due to the open day excitement, there was an increased amount of activity from the Konoha Anbu and Junin, who were focused around the academy and the village entrance gates. Hiruzen Sarutobi was currently sitting in the Hokage seat with a frantic Minato Namikaze pacing the room with a pen and paper in his hands. Hiruzen ignored him as he handed out another village security mission to a Junin and an Anbu entered to report something before heading back to his post. What do you think of this? Good morning ladies and gentlemen, friends and families, brothers and sisters, and our future protectors. Today is the day where the potential future ninja of Konoha enter the academy for the first time and the will of fire is shining bright in their hearts. Minato, hears and interrupted, having already heard this part of his successor's speech 5 times already. I know, Minato winced. But it needs to be perfect. Everyone is going to hear it and it's the first time in years that a Hokage is going to be presenting the entrance ceremony. The old man chuckled. Well, you're only changing a little bit each time you read it to me. And didn't you have a month to write this? The blonde sweat dropped. Hiruzen smiled. Well, on to another topic. But it starts so soon. We are going to have a visitor at the ceremony today. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Hidden by the excitement of the open day, the academy held a private entrance ceremony much like any another school would to introduce all the new students. Inside one of the closed-off academy training halls sat many close friends and family members of the want-to-be ninja. Chatter echoed around the room as more and more people came in. The room was set out with a stage area marked out with tape and the floor area at the front was designated for the first-year students to sit. Chairs were set out in rows for friends and family members to sit in. Naruto became suspiciously quiet as his 3 friends and he entered the room and were ushered away from Sakura's parents and told to sit on the floor up the front with the other first-year children. The group went to sit next to 2 boys that looked to be about their age. Naruto thought he recognized the boys. Hi, I'm Naruto. What's your names? Can we sit with you? The 2 boys looked up at the standing group. One looked like a ghost with black hair and the other looked like he should have been in a nursing home with his graying hair. The latter spoke first. Hi. I am Shinobu and I am gonna be the best shinobi ever. Why's your hair gray? The blonde suddenly burst out only to receive a whack on the head by his pink-haired friend before the group sat down. Sorry about him, he's an idiot. I'm Sakura. The girl smiled with her hand still on Naruto's head and her eyebrow twitching. The 2 boys laughed. My quiet friend over here is Satoshi. He's a bit odd but he's my brother so I have to deal with him. Shinobu laughed as he wrapped his arm around his brother's neck and ruffled him up with a smirk on his lips. You 2 look nothing like brothers, Sasuke butted in, stating the obvious. I'm Sasuke by the way. Hinata. The said girl smiled when the 2 brothers looked at her. Is it really that obvious? Shinobu sighed. Oh well, we are brothers now. I was adopted, we met in the orphanage. The group started to chatter amongst themselves as the room slowly filled up. Children between the ages of about 4 and 10 were sat down at the front of the room. Most of the older children were obviously from the countryside and lived away from Konoha for most of their lives in the odd civilian. The orphans were easily told apart as they sat in large groups and wore old, plain clothing. They ranged from some of the youngest children in the room to about 8. The civilians wore bright colored clothes and few were younger than 6. Finally, the clan children, told apart from their more confident attitudes, ranged from ages 4 to 6. The room quieted a little bit as teachers and ninja started coming in. Naruto chuckled to himself as he rustled through his pockets. This is going to be so good. Sakura rolled her eyes and Hinata giggled with her hand over her mouth. We are not a part of it. They said in sync. Can anyone see Okawa-san anywhere? Shinobu suddenly said with his back towards the group and on his knees, trying to see past the front row of seated adults. He tapped Satoshi on the shoulder but he barely moved and only scanned the adults in his eyesight. What's she look like? Sasuke asked as Naruto didn't move, stuck in his thoughts and playing with something in his pocket. Like a ghost like Satoshi but with light blonde hair, the boy said, waving his arms around. Tall, and Okawa-san was wearing a bright green top I think. Satoshi. Said boy nodded. The 2 girls sat up on their knees and started to help. Well, my Okawa-san is over there, Hinata pointed. Sakura's parents are over there, is that her? No. Her are too big and she's not pale enough. Shinobu said frowning. He suddenly grinned and waved, over there. Hinata's and Sakura's eyes twitched, but they didn't sit back down or scold the boy, both were looking at the woman Hinata pointed out. Is that? Sakura bit her lip and let herself smile a little. I think so. They both sat back down with a big smile, but neither said any more about the woman. Hey, I think all the group is here, Sakura suddenly said, but there seems like a lot more others here this time round. Hinata agreed with a nod and Naruto hummed to say that he was listening. There wasn't this many kids last year, Sasuke said, confused. Sakura bit her lip and stopped herself from putting her hand to her mouth. A silent "ops" escaped her lips. No, there was half this amount when I went to Neji's opening ceremony last year. Hinata quickly covered. Chatter in the hall suddenly quieted as they noticed that the Yondaime Hokage walked onto the taped-off stage. Murmurs ran through the room until the man started his welcome speech. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, friends and family, and of course, our future protectors. Today is the day. Naruto zoned out. He had heard it already 500 times before at home last night. He only zoned back in when the children started being called up to receive an entrance certificate and to introduce themselves to everyone. The order of the students being called up was in age groups, from oldest to youngest in order of civilians, clan children, clan heirs, and finally any special cases. Fukui, Shinobu, and Satoshi were called up one by one in the civilian section of the youngest age group. Shinobu talked about wanting to protect other orphans so that they can endure and eventually take over his place to protect the following generation of orphans. Satoshi gave a small smile when it was his turn and he was asked to introduce himself. My nickname is Sai. I like that name, and I want to make friends and help them and protect this village. Naruto and Sakura looked at each other with wide eyes. I knew I recognized him. Naruto. Hush. Sakura frowned, her finger to her lips as she studied the boy as he walked back to the group to sit. He could be, but he wouldn't be calling himself Sai, that was his code name for his mission. The two shut up as Sakura was called up next. She bit her lip as she walked up to the front, a smile escaped when she spotted the woman Hinata and her were looking at before. Hi, I'm Sakura. I want to be a medical ninja that can heal everyone and fight up front alongside my teammates. She made eye contact with the woman in the crowd before sitting back down with a grin. It took several more people before Sasuke was called. He gulped as his name was called out. His pose was rigid as he walked out onto the stage next to the Hokage and harshly bowed after he received his certificate. His eyes roamed the hall until they met his mother's. The Hokage inconspicuously nudged him when the boy didn't react to what he said. Introduce yourself, Sasuke-kun. He whispered. The boy visibly swallowed. Hi, I'm Uchiha Sasuke. Try and say something about yourself. Minato whispered to the boy. And, I will become the strongest Uchiha in all of time. He quickly marched back down to his seat with a visibly tense jaw and dry mouth. What? Are you scared of public speaking, Sasuke? Naruto asked with a smirk. Entree Hyuga Hinata, Hyuga clan heir. Minato called. The said dark violet-haired girl knocked Naruto on the head as she got up and waddled onto the stage, giving a formal bow once she received her piece of paper, thankful to have more experience this time than she had in her first ceremony. Good morning, I am Hyuga Hinata. I'm 4 years old and I want to be a ninja to protect me friends. With that she almost ran off the stage in a pale red flash to sit back down with her 3 friends. Naruto giggled at her embarrassed blush as she hid her face in his shoulder. Just me left now. His laugh turned evil and his grin into a smirk. Silly, you still have the Nara boy and the Akamaiki boy first. Sasuke grabbed his wrist before the blonde started to get up. Wait till it's your turn before you do whatever you are planning. Naruto rolled his eyes, however the giggle in his voice betrayed him. What makes you think that I'm planning something? I've known you forever. I know you are going to do at least something. He didn't reply to the Uchiha, which only caused a giggle from the 2 girls and confused looks from Shinobu and Satoshi. He eyed Shikamaru as he finished his speech on cloud watching and Choji's on the fact that his clan was not fat. Alright, my turn. The Namikaze made an Uzumaki grin and bounded up the front with a hop in his step and a smirk overtaking his grin. He easily ignored the curious eyes of the audience which followed him. Minato smiled. Entree. Uzumaki Naruto. His smirk grew and confusion entered the faces of the people who knew who he was. My favorite food is ramen, my favorite thing to do is prank, and my goal is life is to fix the future. Suddenly, with a puff of smoke, a lidless bucket of paint was in the blonde's hands and was being swung in the direction of the village leader. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. A month ago. Scribbled over papers were sprawled all over the desk. The sink over the other side of the room was full of old dirty dishes and the bin was full of old 2-minute noodle cups. Uchiha Obito was leaning over the dining table with a huge smirk on his lips and ink smudge marks on his hands and face. His messy hair was only the last thing on a long list that screamed to an outsider that he was an introvert that had just worked out that his craziness wasn't as crazy as one might have once believed so. It can work. Obito's voice echoed around the dark, silent room. Rin can live. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. The audience gasped as orange paint splat all over the stage and the Yondaime Hokage. Laughter filled the air as the Uzumaki pulled out another bucket of paint. And I will start changing the future by making Konoha more colorful. The blue paint was aimed at the wall this time, although blue splatters landed on the floor and the village leader again. Naruto. He quickly jumped from the stage and over the other students laughing hysterically. He only just got to the exit when the ground suddenly started to violently shake and an explosion was heard. Chairs went flying and parents were jumping up to cover the children as a beam and rubble fell from the roof. Eyes were wide once the explosion calmed down. The room was silent and only the sound of fire crackling brought sense back into the people in the room. Cries from many of the younger children and yells of worried civilian parents abruptly echoed around the room, causing chaos and fear as a second explosion was heard only just above their heads. Another beam threatened to fall on top of where the children were seated. Everyone out of the room and to the evacuation point. Find your family members on your way or once you are there. Minato's booming voice could be heard over the turmoil, causing many to calm down. A third explosion was heard a little further away as people hurried out the door. Minato and a few other ninja parents stayed back until everyone had left the room. Naruto bit his lip as he reached the emergency evacuation point, which was full as all the people that were at the ninja school for the open day were there too. He started looking for his friends. He was wide-eyed and breathless until he found his group along with Satoshi and Shinobu. The latter of the two boys was coughing and leaning on the former. Is everyone okay? The blonde boy said after he had grabbed hold of Hinata and hugged her. Yes, but what was that? Shinobu, are you alright? Sakura asked as soon as she noticed the boy was having trouble breathing. It's only asthma, but he left his puffer back there. Satoshi said, rubbing his brother's hunched over back. Naruto's eyes scanned the roof before stopping at the sight of the third Hokage and two ANBU's backs facing an enemy out of sight. He took one step closer before one of the parents, an off-duty ninja, took control of the situation and ordered everyone to start heading up the side of the Hokage monument into the evacuation safe caves. Naruto almost growled as he was shoved along with other children and civilians that had been at the academy for open day as a fire jutsu could be seen coming from the roof. I want to help, but Hinata put her hand on his shoulder. You know you can't do anything. Let the others do their job. She slid her hand into his as they were shepherded up the side of the mountain. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Asterisk. Underscore. Obito smirked as he appeared inside the Konoha Archive Library, just around the corner from an Anbu guard. Close one, he whispered to himself. He had a quick skim at the bookshelves around himself before deciding that he was in the wrong section. Silently, he jumped past the half-asleep guard and hid behind a shelf and started looking around again. Half an hour passed without the intruder noticing, as he was too interested in some of the stuff he had come across, although he had yet to find what he was looking for. He had spent years trying to work out the jutsu he was currently looking for from scratch. Nevertheless, it was designed by the Nadaime Hokage and perfected by Orochimaru. He had forsaken starting from scratch to remake the jutsu and decided a month ago to just steal the original plans and work from that. The young man grinned under his black, single-hold mask when he finally found the section full of information on the Nadaime and many of his now forbidden jutsu ideas. Unexpectedly, a handful of kunai landed just in front of his feet. Don't take one more step. The once sleeping Anbu was behind him and readying himself for a fight. How did you get in here? Obito could hear another pair of footsteps getting closer. Let's see. Obito put on the voice of Toby. I just waltzed right in here like everyone else. Now I will be leaving in just a second. Let me finish finding my book and I will go to the service desk, then leave. His hands waved around and pointed in random directions. The Anbu faltered, a drop of sweat ran down his head. This guy's an idiot, he thought. In that moment, Obito revealed 2 storage scrolls from a pocket. The smaller one fell immediately onto the ground, ignored, and the second larger one was quickly ripped open, revealing a rather large, fancy seal. The Anbu jumped from his position, his hands raised defensively and kunai at the ready. He barely got a word out before Obito was running through hand signs. Seal.